Missing one at this late stage can cost you dearly in a marathon. Ncube was still fourth, but almost 3 minutes back, with Leonard Corky back in fifth. The women's race was far from over up front, but back in sixth place, Felima Rabia was just less than 3 minutes behind. The Wapobiri was fifth, but running strongly and pulling away from Rabia. Fourth was Lizzie Chokore, who was 3 minutes behind the leaders Bira, Nyakoshira and Chiyetsa. In the men's half marathon, the four frontrunners were still scorching along, with Gilbert Mutandiru and Kelvin Pangisu doing all the pace setting and Rabson Chigara holding on for dear life. 24-year-old Elmore Sabanda was fourth, but also battling to maintain contact with the men up front. With the finish line almost in sight, these two pulled away, and as daylight grew between them and the rest, it was clear that it was going to be a tight finish between Mutandiru and Pangisu. Sabanda looked like he'd settled for third, but first was still an open debate. To the marathon, and still the three top men were locked together. Chigadia, early pace setter, and Gaseke and Sabanda deeply locked, each looking and feeling for a drop in pace or a slight hesitation before they would strike and surge. In typical marathoner style, a water sachet was missed, but immediately Ngaseke passed one on to Sabanda. That right there is why people of all walks of life are attracted to the sport. The women were almost 30 minutes behind the men, but that did not mean that their racing was less taxing. Chokori was now making most of the pace, with Catherine Nyakiwashira running off her left shoulder. Lizzie Chokoro was in third, but quite a way behind. In the wheelchair section, Alfred Moyo still had a handy lead of more than 9 minutes. At the Kingdom Hotel Waterpoint, the marathon leaders were turning up the pace again, and by now it was a two-horse race. Sabanda and Chingadia were at each other, but the backmarkers made it tough to duck and dive. Further back, the Sunninghill runners from Johannesburg were enjoying the scenery, but it was clear that the sun was taking no prisoners on this fine day in Africa. Into the last 2 kilometers for the half marathoners, and here again a demonstration how these athletes, although competing against each other, look out for one another. And then, finally, the breakaway. A big surge from the defending Zambezi Light Victoria Falls half marathon champion Kelvin Pangiso, the 29-year-old who threw a sub 3-minute kilometer at his compatriot Gilbert Mutandiru and got the break he needed. At the school stadium, he had a 12-second gap and crossed the line in 66 minutes and 27 seconds, a fine time in the sweltering conditions. Mutandiru at 25, perhaps lacking some race experience, but a super run from him to take the silver medal, with the first wheelchair athlete, Alfred Moyo, next to cross the line just under 90 minutes. Elmore Sabanda was third, 85 seconds back, with an exhausted Sedas Pasipamire in fourth, followed by the second wheelchair competitor home, Edmund Mukutia.
Yeah, no, now I'm enjoying because I managed to defend my title. It's not easy to win a race 2 years consecutive, but I want to thank God because I managed to defend my title. This year there was a lot, it was tough because there was a lot of competitors. Almost everyone was there, especially for top athletes from Zimbabwe. Almost everyone was there, so it was tough than last year. No, I came here because in Zimbabwe there's no races. Especially for these sponsors, we want to thank them very well because sometimes you can train for 6 months and no race. So that's one of the other major which motivate us to come here and run, and they will organize well this event.
No, the race for today, it was very, very tough than last year. Let's say it was not so tough like this year.
What made it tough this year?
No, all the guys, they were here today. They were here. It was a tough race.
Back to the marathon, and in the women's race, Catherine Nyakoshira was still setting the pace, but her stride was not as smooth as it had been before. Chietsa Chikori was second, and it was not over by a long shot. In a marathon, anything can happen and often does. In the men's race, you could have said snap. 3 men together and something had to give with less than 10 Ks to go. Further back, it was just a case of survival. By now, most of these runners were saying the athlete's prayer, which goes something like this: Dear Lord, you pick them up, I'll put them down. And a cold Zambezi light beer was but a distant dream, but with each step, a little closer. But that didn't stop this fellow. Hey, it's not called carbo loading for nothing. women in the half marathon was also cutting down the meters, and for Olivia Chetati there was less than 500 to go. Alison Manake was second, but almost 7 minutes behind. When Chetati hit the track, the clock ticked on to 1 hour, 25 minutes and 28 seconds. A fine run in view of the fact that she was never pushed.
Yeah, it was quite challenging. The race, it was competitive, especially at the starting. The way we started, there were some few juniors who were so fast. You know, juniors, they've got a lot of speed, so they were having a lot of speed. So I struggled at the first kilometers because they were pushing hard and hard and hard until I catch them there by the gate going to Zambian border. From there, I pushed, then I was okay with the pace.
The top 6 athletes all cracked the 70-minute mark, 2 wins in a row for Kelvin Pangisu, and a big winning margin for Olivia, a bright future ahead for 19-year-old Alison Maneke in second place. Back out on the road and in the marathon, Tim Hall-Bailey was going well in the Zambezi Man competition and would eventually complete his race in 3:55, with Stuart Gemmell and Ben Burr running the fastest marathon out of the whole lot, clocking 3:47. Kiri Lang was setting the pace for the women and would fill 6th place overall in the competition. Zimbabwe's CJ Kruger completed her marathon in 4:35. That moved her up into 3rd place overall. But the win went to Harare Athletic Club's Annika Thompson, who charged her a 4-hour and 24-minute clocking, with Louise Nielsen-Doran finishing 5th overall. Sandra Lynn Smith ran for 5 hours and 20 minutes and was placed 9th. But for some, the fun had cleared out a while ago.
Stopped being fun about an hour ago. No, we'll get there slowly.
You'll finish, you'll go to the end.
Definitely.
Those legs were now feeling the exertions of the day before. Cycle leg winner John Lee was battling and would eventually get to the line in 5 hours and 48 minutes, 30 minutes slower than the time that he clocked for the 102 Ks of the cycling. The Civil Aviation Authority team was flying.
Very good.
And you're going to finish?
I am. I intend to finish.
Very good. It encourages more companies to participate in this great marathon.
Hello, how's it going?
Perfect. That's such fun. Thank you. It's really good. It's been a beautiful race. Thank you. And well done. Very well done.
It was a bit tough, but it was okay. It was manageable, very much.
Okay. I can't say I love it, but it's fun.
Her first marathon ever, and she makes the top 10.
Half, yeah.
Oh, first half. Yeah. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was a very good race.
We saw baboons, I saw springboks, saw Victoria Falls. Yeah, it was magic.
At the finish line, there were all sorts of sights, and who said you had to finish it on your own 2 feet?
It's actually good that we associate Zambezi Light with a premium event. This setting is actually very ideal because this is a world wonder, and the brand Zambezi Light carries part of the Vic Falls by way of being called Zambezi Light. So it's a great association, and we feel that both the race and the brand have received a lot of good mileage from today's event. To the success of Zambezi Light, cheers!
Cheers! For the wheelchair athletes, this is a supreme challenge, and the competitors are only as good as their equipment. The lighter, the better.
The race was so great, and I enjoyed it. And I would like to thank the sponsors for this tremendous race, and it was okay.
Almost 10 minutes of winning margin for Moyo, but it was a slightly closer affair in the ordinary wheelchair section, where Samson Muruyiwa got the victory. Back out on the road, and Catherine Nyakoshira had finally broken away from Chokore Chietsa and was looking like she had had enough in the tank to get to the finish line in first. But for the back markers, there was still a long way to go, and it was thirsty work out there. For the top men, there was still no respite as the top 3 continued to throw surges at each other with no one able to break away. At the Rainbow Tourism Water Point, with the kilometers counting down, Nyakoshira was still in the lead, but her nearest pursuer Chokore Chietsa had started closing the gap, and Lizzie Chikoro too was gaining a little. Into the last 8 for the men, and finally Sabanda and Chingadia had broken away from the fast starter Michael Ngaseke,